All right, we're back with the new media show, live again, and I think we're waiting for kind of Todd's distribution points to spin up a little bit, and we'll get the show going here in a second.
Yeah, we're good, Rob.
Okay, let's do it.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
All right, Todd, it's great to be back doing the show. It's a little bit later. I think we're going to be doing this later edition of the new media show until the end of the month, and then we'll be back to I think our normal time. But
Normal scheduled time, the first week of August. Yeah, I depart here on the 28th, and I'll be back. Well, in my temporary studio.
Yep. Well, I'm sure it'll be a good studio. You've got all this really good equipment, so you should be able to get back up pretty quick. It's just it's not going to be the same as what you had before.
No, and I have a plan, and hopefully I'll have everything fully engaged in about a month. But I'll be able to do shows, no problem right off the get go.
Yeah,
it won't be as fancy as it was before, but it hasn't been fancy for 2 months.
Yeah, and what you're doing right now is a good example of what's possible for all of us now, right?
Yeah, it's easy to move around for sure.
Yes.
It seems like every time I start my show, my glasses look like they're crooked.
I don't know what that means. Does that mean that that your face is crooked, or the glasses are bent somehow? Did you get knocked around or something?
Yeah, well, these are older glasses, so yeah, probably both of the above.
Yeah. Well, now, I mean, we're kind of in the countdown to Podcast Movement, coming here in kind of middle to towards the latter half of August, and I did book, and I don't know if you saw the email, but I did book Dan Franks to join us next Wednesday to talk about Podcast Movement and what's going on down there.
Well, we haven't talked to Dan in quite a while.
Yeah, so it'd be great to have him back on, but I got a commitment that he was going to carve out some time for us. So I think that's great. It'd be great to hear more about what he's planning to do at Podcast Movement, and there's also been some some news that's come out this week as well. And as you could see from the title slide of this episode's going to be really kind of trying to drill into kind of both of our views of what we see happening in the podcasting space, or the trend lines that are moving us towards kind of certain things over the next maybe few years or 10 years or something like that. And I think usually, Todd, I think we've had this ability to kind of see the big trend lines in the podcast industry and be able to kind of foresee and throw those ideas out. I don't think that we've always been 100% accurate on this stuff, but I think a lot of the ones that I've kind of identified here are, I think we're seeing stages of those happening right now. So I'm sure most of it won't be a big surprise to everybody, but the big news, I think, this week was an update to Overcast, and I thought we should definitely give some kudos to Marcos, who's been kind of a single-handed ship on that app on iOS for many years, and it's good to see that he has an update on its 10th anniversary of his app. So I don't know what you think about that, Todd.
Well, he's, and he basically said, please, everyone that's a user, give it a few days before they start putting him on blast on what it looks like. Gives it some time. I think what it appears to have happened is he's been able to, update the code base. And, he's got something now that he can easily develop and add to, when you have tech debt, just like any other platform, even in creating apps, it definitely 10 years is a long time to be on the same code base. So definitely he has a platform now in which to, I would assume, more than likely be able to roll out more features going forward, much easier. So, yeah, 10 years. And I haven't seen too much feedback on, I haven't even looked for feedback on Twitter to see what people are saying, but I'm sure people are. Also, hey, Rob, I do want to note, so just so
Mhm.
everybody knows, because of my work schedule, I
Mhm.
typically work until about 4:30 in the morning here.
Mhm.
And being 8 a.m. here, someone said last week I looked a little haggard. Yeah, I've had about 2 hours of sleep.
You're right. Yeah, this has been a crazy time zone schedule for us to be able to do this show. So
Yeah, yeah. Normally I sleep until noon.
yeah, right.
So, yeah, I apologize if I look a little sleepy face on video and a little more crusty on my voice, but yeah, I try to wake up like 30 minutes prior to the show start. But, after only being in bed for, really about 2.5 hours,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
yeah,
It's like doing the
exactly.
show before when I was in Honolulu and doing the show at 7 AM. If you remember those days.
Yeah, I think you had to get up like at 6 a.m. or something like that to
Yeah,
be able to
something crazy.
get all
But
ready
it
and stuff. Yeah.
but it was easier because I'd slept all night, It wasn't like I was, only been in bed for 2 hours.
Yeah, and back then I was on the West Coast, so it was only 3 hour
Yeah,
difference between us.
yeah,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to add that there. But yeah, and, I think, the Overcast, they still have probably the highest independent, percentages of
Yeah.
any app out there. So, congratulations to Marco.
Yeah, I think so too. And I guess this is the document that was shared. I've got it up on the screen here, and it basically announces the 10th anniversary of Overcast 1.0, and it's happy to launch a complete rewrite. So it's 10 years in coming, but it looks like what's new is a much faster, more responsive interface, more reliable and more accessible. So it sounds like he's built in probably the latest libraries that Apple's had in their kind of code base, and a more modern design, which is basically it's an important thing to do now as well, and improvements throughout, such as undoing large seeks, and new playlist priority options and easier navigation. And I guess there's more that's part of that as well. What's not, I'm not quite sure what that means, but most features Overcast is still Overcast, so it's not like he's changed any of the core, I think, of it. I think these are just all improvements.
Yeah.
Um, so and I think that's great. He says about the business, I'm still one person operation with no funding or external ownership, serving only my customers. So, you
And that's saying something.
that is saying something. He's been running this thing for 10 years, and I'd say it's probably the second most, maybe oftentimes maybe more respected podcast app than even Apple Podcasts at times in the past, especially. Yeah.
Well, if you also consider that he's been able to survive and live, uh, a lot of apps can't. They don't make it from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, and he's
So,
he's gone through some changes to his app over the years. I think he had some kind of more premium features in the past to unlock, certain functions in the app and things like that. And I think he backed away from that because I think it was a hurdle to adoption of his app. And I think so he's had to keep himself kind of lean and mean to be able to, keep it all going, I think.
yeah.
Yeah. So
But that's, man, it's good on him for getting that done. And I don't know if there's any podcasting 2.0 features in there or not. I'd be
that's a good
curious to
question.
know that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, he didn't mention any announcement here, but I'm sure we'll be hearing more, and as people use it, they'll be able to see those
yeah,
things if
yeah,
they exist. So, and that's another topic that's been coming up this week that I've been kind of involved in some threads on X on is is the value for value kind of controversy right now around whether or not people think it's gonna live or die, or how it's going to evolve to evolve past this whole
Well,
alby kind of question mark right now.
yeah, again, value for value goes beyond just the crypto piece, and and I think
Oh, it does. Yeah.
there's a way ahead here, and and we knew that they were a weak link
Yeah.
in the chain, and any podcaster today that is wants to participate, you can still use GetAlby, but there is more hurdles than there were before. So yeah, they're working on a solution, and I feel probably within the next month or so, probably things will be back on track. But it was a big upswing to get podcasters engaged in the very, very beginning. So I guess the main thing to remember is a value for value doesn't just, value for value, a big part of it, especially on the crypto side, was not necessarily the ability to earn a huge number of dollars. It was really about the engagement
Yeah.
of the audience members through the podcasting 2.0 apps, and being able to instantly boost and send a comment to a show. Now, today we are live with value for value. So, from that perspective, I'm pretty bullish. People continue to send us streaming sats. So I think that for those that are using it currently, there's not any impact. But overall, over time, there could potentially be, I guess, for better words, a little slower adoption in the next the next few months, until we get a new system in place, which I think is been pretty much figured out.
Yeah, I would think that the only real way that you could, if you're in the US, that you could probably get a Alby account would be if you used a VPN to access it
No,
outside of the
no,
US, right? No?
all Blueberry customers can still get a GetAlby account. It's not
Oh,
a
they can.
problem.
In the
Yeah,
US.
in the US, yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay.
But
That's good to hear.
they have to go to a little different setup than what was initially offered, and it's all about custodial and non-custodial wallets. And I don't want to get too much into the weeds here,
Yeah.
but basically, the U.S. government is worried about people moving money around without knowing who it is and being a banking entity. And one type of wallet that you can basically take care of yourself. You are the banker as your own individual person, essentially.
Mhm.
Probably got that wrong, but yeah. So, but for now, at least, Blueberry customers can still get Alby account, but they have to go on to their new system, which is less than perfect.
Yeah, and then one of the limitations has been just the support of being able to fund the initial kind of trough of, you know, Satoshis through the current financial system.
Yeah. Fountain and Podfans, they all have their own system, and if you're a listener utilizing one of those two platforms, you're easily be able to fund, as a listener, the ability to be able to send sats back to a podcaster. But the bigger challenge for podcasters now is you kind of have to pre-fund your wallet to a certain extent to make sure the transactions go through. But again,
Yeah.
we don't want to get too complicated. I think there's a way ahead. I think Adam has figured out a way to go, and they're working dutifully. Matter of fact, I got a message from I asked Adam, where they were at in testing and what was happening, and said we're working on it. Mary Oscar is going to post a demo. He's from Mary Oscar's from Fountain. He says, with a bit of luck, about to get a lot easier for podcasters, especially listeners. So it's forced the index to think and to I guess for better words, adapt. And I think in the end, there'll be some pains initially, kind of switching around. But I think once we do, I think it'll be a much better solution.
Yeah, does that mean that we're going to be likely moving away from Satoshis?
No, nope.
No?
Satoshis are still going to be.
Okay.
It's just a new way of. We don't have to use GetAlby anymore. That's the key. And it'll be much easier to get dollars to Satoshis, and vice versa. There won't be as much difficulty within making the transactions happening.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, if they can do that and make it easier for people to sign up and get on board and get, a pre-funding of sorts.
Because
I know, that's how I got started with it. I got pre-funding from PodFans.
But my thought was initially that maybe we would, and I still think this is a valuable option, is, the ability to buy tokens with cash and just have a token system. But then there has to be all kinds of, you have to have a clearinghouse, and it's not as clean either. Nothing is easy. So I think this new Satoshi thing is going to work out fine.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear what that is. I don't know if we should have Adam on or Dave or somebody.
Yeah, when we get to the point where we're able to adopt something, again, they've just within the last couple of weeks realized the opportunity. Hey, one thing I do want to say is, it's kind of ironic. Dave Jackson sent 22 stats a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Todd, you got me excited. I'm sick of the BS as well." But Dave's made a move. Dave Jackson's off to doing something else, and he's being pretty mum about it. But I guess we'll find out in about 11 days.
Yeah, and I also heard via email today that Podfest has made some big moves here too, in getting additional investment and getting some more leadership on their team that's coming from a couple of new guys that have, I guess, some interests in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world that are going to come on board and have more and provide more resources and maybe grow the Podfest platform more. So that was publicly announced today.
Wow.
So I'm trying to figure out a little bit more from Chris on that, because obviously I'm involved in the Hall of Fame with him, and so trying to understand what these changes are going to mean for his event.
Did they name who the people are?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me right now, but yeah, I mean, I think it's probably makes sense for Chris to come on after Dan and then give us kind of an update on what that all means. Right.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to do that as well. But it looked like a real positive thing. It looked like Chris Kremitzos was really excited about having some additional support on his team and trying to build out a more kind of, I think a more organization per se. It's not like he hasn't had an organization behind him, but just a deeper bench of sorts, I think, is what he was kind of implying.
Yeah, so makes sense. Well, good for him.
Yeah, so I'm definitely excited about that, because I mean, I'm heavily involved in the Podfest event as well. So it's great to see. Some positive things like this happen is definitely a good thing. So there was also another topic that came up this week in relation to the podcast index. And here, let me pull that up as well here. And, a lot of people are very, very familiar with this, this tracking chart off of the podcastindex.org website that you can go to and see how many total podcasts in the index and how many shows, over the last 3 days, how many shows over the last 10 days. And I got a tweet thread from Neil Veglio, who was raising a good question because it's not really clear. I mean, if we look at this page, it says shows published in the last 3 days. Now that I've always meant or understood that to mean episodes
It
published in the
it
last 3
no,
days,
it means the number of shows that published a new episode.
but it doesn't say that anywhere on here.
But it is though. Shows published in the
Right.
last 3 days. So
Right. So that's what raised this question thread about isn't that new shows rather than episodes though? Because it's not clear on that page. So I sent a text message to the podcast index saying you might want to put on there just a little bit more clarification that this is shows that have published a new episode because it doesn't
yeah.
say that on there.
And one
Uh,
thing to understand too is the index does not automatically include every new Spotify spam show that basically launches. They have a minimum number of episodes
mhm,
a show over at Spotify has to produce. And I don't know what his benchmark is, but maybe it's 7 or something like that. They have before they're even able to be listed in the index because it was just throwing the numbers off because basically several million dead shows and if
yeah.
someone would come in and do a test and that was counted as a new episode. So they've been out of the picture for a long time. So and it would include a brand new show. If there is a brand new show that would be included in those numbers, but because those numbers are updated
Mhm,
essentially, I think every 24 hours,
mhm,
you're just pretty guaranteed that over time, the trend line is that there's 326,000 shows currently are
mhm,
publishing a new episode in in the last 30 days. So
yeah.
I don't think there's much. You can look at data 25 ways to Sunday. We had a little hiccup in our directory and where some shows were not getting updated as often as they should have been with us pulling RSS feeds. So, that
Right.
came to light when we were getting ready to do our monthly stats report. And I said, hey, something's missing here because the numbers are down. So we didn't publish that number. As a matter of fact, I got to publish that post tomorrow. Um, Basically looking at that because we knew our number was wrong and we didn't want to skew our report from month to month. So we kind of see a similar number as well because we have a very full
Mhm.
a directory of shows.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
it's just say 300,000 and give or take some percentage points here amongst friends. And still the numbers are dramatically down.
Right. I mean, frankly, even the total podcasts in the index number is off by hundreds of thousands.
Well, I don't know what their total number is right now um, in the index. There's a spot where we can find that if I can find my link to it.
Well,
And
this is this is actually pulling live from the site. It's not a screenshot. So
oh, I know, but I'm talking about, but that isn't the total number of um oh yeah, the index. Yeah. So there has been a cleanup of the index.
right.
Again,
Yeah, that's
of
what I was
those.
trying to say is that it looks like that there has been significant cleanup that's happened. And it was my understanding that the cleanup really only happened if the RSS feed link was not operational anymore.
Well,
Right.
it's just like us. We have criteria. If the
Right.
RSS feed is down, we give it so much time to come back up. And
Oh,
then
you do? Okay.
same thing goes with media. If the media is gone, we give it so much time before we take and we run a script basically every month that does that automatically. I'll
Mhm.
see if I can while we're talking here. I have an XML link that basically, well, it has all the numbers. It basically has a whole list of stuff. So, but again, 4.2 million in the total index, and Apple doesn't say there's 4.2 million. So this includes a lot of sources. It includes music feeds, includes stuff from. So there's just a wide variety of feeds there.
Yeah, and Apple doesn't maintain any kind of a current like daily count website on how many podcasts in there. They only do it via like a press release or something like that.
Right.
And it's very rarely updated. I think the last number I saw was like 2.5 million.
Yeah.
So they're actually doing a deeper kind of filter against the content out there. I'm not exactly sure what their filter criteria is, but I also know that not everybody submits their podcast to Apple either.
That's true.
I mean, that may come as a shock to some people to realize that that's the case, but that's been the case for many years.
Yeah.
That because Apple has created kind of a hurdle, a bigger hurdle to get your podcast into their catalog than like, let's say, a Spotify has. That it has been a little bit of a barrier to people submitting their shows over there. And sometimes people just want to be in Spotify. But the problem with only wanting to be in Spotify is that there's like 100 other apps that they're missing out on. Right.
Well,
So,
and there's also a challenge too. Spotify, we're seeing this from time to time.
mhm.
And I don't we have anything conclusive. I think we talked about it before, but Spotify may be turning off RSS feeds to.
Yeah.
Well, they did one thing that's interesting. They had the Apple block tag, basically saying, "Hey, don't list me on Apple," turned on some of their feeds, and then some of their feeds weren't even turned on. We've had people come over to even at Blueberry and say, "Hey, our podcast is not in your directory," and we said, "Well, you don't have an RSS feed. You go turn it on."
Mhm.
And maybe that's just content creators accidentally turning it off and not knowing the ramifications of that as well. Hey, by the way, Dave made a comment the 29th in the chat here. He said the 29th. So no hints, Dave, on what you're going to be up to, my friend?
I mean, I don't know for sure because Dave's been pretty tight-lipped about this, but the coincidence with Podfest and him is not. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. So
is he doing something with Podfest?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just
Oh.
think that there's a coincidental timing here.
Well, there was there's this, and he said something to the effect it's more along his wanting to do education.
Right?
So, okay.
We're just guessing right now. Dave's
Yeah,
been pretty tight-lipped.
we're speculating, and it's probably maybe there's going to be a big announcement by some company or something. So anyway,
Yeah, you never know.
congratulations.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too that we should mention this as well. Is that just the last couple of days there's been a lot of staff changes over at Libsyn. The two founders.
They've been exit. They've had a lot of people exit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, both Dave and Trevor, the two founders of AdvertiseCast, that then got changed into Libsyn Ads, they both left the company now.
Yeah, I saw that announcement in Pod News.
Yep, and now Dave's left, and so I don't know if there's a changeover, people changing roles at the company.
Rob Walsh going to be the last man standing over there?
Well, Rob and Elsie, right? Those are those are the two Hall of Famers that are still there, right?
Yeah.
So we shall see, what's going to happen over there. But changes are definitely afoot.
Dave says, any news on that service you are talking about that helps with ads from radio? Todd was talking about. Had a call with them this afternoon. In fact, so yeah, soon. soon we'll have working out the particulars of the deal. For what it's
Yeah.
worth, the site's public, so I could probably share the site, but I'm going to try to maintain some exclusivity as much as I can until we get the deal done. Someone can find it. Tom Webster knows the site. He was the one that introduced me to the owner. So it's not like the site is private, but it's had limited rollout, and there's probably only about 400 podcasters currently
Mhm.
using the platform. None from Blueberry as of yet.
And it looks like our arena posted a good question here. What does value for value mean to you? Well, just to summarize it, it's basically just an exchange of value kind of platform that enables all the parties involved in a podcast to share and receive some level of compensation for
There, there's
their
a
time and efforts. Right.
there's a website called valueforvalue.info
Hmm.
that you can go over and look at. And the model, at least the podcasting 2.0 model, there is a philosophy that is basically, and I'm just going to read from the website. Excuse me. My 2 hours of sleep is creeping into my voice here. It's a monetization model, a content format, and a way of life. It's about freedom and openness, connection and free speech, sound money, and censorship resistant. So as far as a monetization model, it's and the website here says, let's get one thing out of the way. Monetizing non-scarce information is difficult. The default monetization model at the online world is advertising, a model that relies heavily on surveillance and gameable analytics. Next section about is content format. There isn't one content format when it comes to value for value. When it comes to podcasting, including your listeners into the feedback and content creation loop is tried and tested. And by saying the way of life, value for value is more than, again, a monetization scheme. It's a lifestyle. It's a mindset of abundance and fairness, a
Mhm.
new way of looking at value in general, but digital value in particular. So again, valueforvalue.info really kind of lays out the mindset of what value for value is. But for me, what it really means is if we provide you valuable information,
Mhm.
our insights of what we, on this show here, Rob has tried to keep it a little more structured here of recent, but if we're providing value to you,
Mhm.
we would love value back in one of three ways: your time, your talent, or your treasure. So the treasure being a donation to the show, whether it be a PayPal donation or whether it be a send us a check or live streaming sats back to the show with Boost.
Mhm.
As an example, we did get a boost here just a few moments ago. Came from Matt. He says, "Thanks, guys. Hope you're enjoying the summer." 5150 stats that he just sent us is in just way of instant feedback uh, to the podcast. Now, the time and talent is you can help us with research. You can help us with social promotion. Whatever you want to donate to the show in your time and talent is really what it boils back to. Some people don't have time. Some people are more followers than wanting to help. So the
Mhm.
value can come back to the show in a cash donation.
Mhm.
Um, so, that's kind of where I lay in this show. And again, it's not, and I know some people in the value for value world are going to cringe when they say donation, but you're providing a donation back to the show for the whatever value we're providing. And I think because of the way we do this show, it's kind of unique. It's our
Mhm.
perspectives. It's not necessarily a tech show like I do twice weekly, where that information is freely available from multiple sources. I do some commentary on that. So is that show follow along and not having enough scarce information to make it more valuable? Probably. But again, if you provide insight on your content, um, and again, it is truly you have to have a real dedicated uh, thought process if you're going to implement this, because you have to ask people to give you money.
Yeah.
Matt Madero says, did you catch my video about V for V? That would be a good thing to link, Matt, in the chat here.
Yeah, I was going to put it in there too and see if I could post it. I have it here.
Yeah. So
Let's see if
again,
it'll
I
go
think
out to
that,
everybody.
but
Yeah.
again, I always tell people this is just one of many opportunities you would have as a content creator to earn money. You maybe you want to turn on programmatic.
Mhm.
Maybe you want to have an advertiser. Maybe you want to create premium content. Maybe you want to create content that is released early that doesn't have any advertising in, that people pay
Mhm.
for that without advertising. There's lots of ways to monetize. And the best part of this is you choose what you want to do.
Yeah. Right.
Rob and I have, gotten some nice donations over the years, but it's not a basis of the podcast.
Yeah, it's basically a donation model, a donation model that can be utilized. It doesn't transfer typically large amounts of money. It's usually small transactions. The numbers can look kind of large, but that doesn't translate into a lot of, dollars, right? But one of the things that I've always kind of really, really liked about it is kind of this ability for a show and the consumption platform or the listening platform, as well as the audience, to exchange satoshis with each other, which is a form of a digital cryptocurrency of sorts. It's a derivative of Bitcoin. Um, but to be able to have that exchange, right, and these streaming satoshis is a very interesting model
Yeah.
that it is based on how long you listen, right? So you're going to contribute so many satoshis per minute
Yep.
of how much you actually consume the content, which is a way of providing kind of like a stream of value based on what you have received from that show. If you listen to half the show, then you only contribute the equivalent of how many minutes the half of the show was.
But there's something that's really key here about the value for value model in
Mhm.
streaming sats and donating sats via Boost.
Mhm.
Everyone wins. In basically my value chain, let's just use that word. It's probably not the value blocks. I can set up splits. And if you're using Fountain,
Right.
they take a
Right.
fee. So they win every time you do a boost.
Yeah, so
They
they
get
get
a
a
few
cut
percent.
too. They get a cut.
Get a cut.
Mhm.
So I have set up splits where in this show, Rob gets 50%, I get 50%. It's automatically split to our wallets.
Mhm.
And then I can set up splits to third parties as well. Some people have 10, 15 splits in their value block to be able to send donations to other people. At Blueberry, we charge a 3% fee. So how we basically are part of the value chain. Especially because PowerPress today is about maybe 1/5 of the customers that use Blueberry are actually hosting with us.
Mhm.
The others are hosting with Libsyn, Podbean, Captivate, whoever, and we earn $0 from them, yet they get to use. So, but by them enabling value for value, we're able to earn just a little bit um, from those that are using the plugin without having paid us a dime.
Mhm.
So, some people may argue I shouldn't take a fee anyway, but we believe in this basically everyone winning.
Mhm.
You look at Marco on Overcast. Um, how has he survived? And you have to look at his model on his app, reoccurring subscriptions.
Yeah.
You don't get the app one and done. If he'd have been one and done, he would have died. The app would have died 7 years ago. So we have to be able to feed the entire ecosystem. Folks that are using the OP3 stat system, they have a wallet. You can send them value by putting them on a split,
Right.
and a bunch of services. So,
Yeah.
and the index also gets a split as well. And they use every Satoshi that comes in to provide basically open channels. And that is a technical term. You have to put, let's say, 250,000 sats on a channel or 1,000,000 sats on the channel to
Mhm.
be able to ensure that the transactions, you basically got to have enough money in the bank, essentially, to make sure the transaction comes through, is able to transfer um, from one wallet to the next. If you don't have enough on-chain, basically channels,
Mhm.
uh, a transaction could actually fail. So this is where it makes it difficult for the non-geeks to really, with this new thing that Albie's doing, to be able to participate, because they have to basically put some sats on a chain to be able to um, ensure that there's going to be transactions going to make it through. But again, this value for value goes way beyond sats. But one beauty of it is everyone in the pipeline wins.
Yeah, Todd, that video that was mentioned by Matt Medeiros, I've got on the
You got it in the
screen
link.
here. Yeah, I've got
Okay.
it on the screen. It's a pretty long video, so I did post a link to it in the YouTube stream chat off of my channel. But I think we can play it for a minute or two, and you can get an idea of what Matt's talking about. It's basically a conversation that he's having about podcast folks in the industry, um, keep getting value for value wrong. So this is I don't know if you can hear it or not.
I can't, but go ahead, Rob. Just let it play. I make sure the stream can hear it.
I'm not sure it is able to hear
Yeah,
it.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, I don't think it's going
But
on
anyway,
either.
just I'll include that. Grab it here. I'll grab that link and I'll include
Okay.
it in the show notes today so that people can
Okay.
can uh, can listen to it.
Yeah.
But it's a different type of mindset. I think that's
Mhm.
the thing here, and and I think one thing that I've acknowledged is you're not going to get you're not going to go to dinner when someone's sending you um, 50 sats a minute. That's not dinner money. That is I'm listening. I'm here. I'm appreciating what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm staying for the entire 90 minutes because I can see 90 minutes worth of 50 sats coming in every 60 seconds. But
Mhm.
the boosts are also part of the engagement factor where they don't have to do an email. They stay right in the Fountain app or one of the other apps, one of the other new podcasting apps at podcastapps.com, and they just like send a text message, but you send some sats with it. Um, and if you love something, you can send 100,000 sats. If you're pissed off at somebody, you can send them 5 with a message. And that's the beauty of it. You put the value that you desire upon and what I would recommend if you're a podcaster out there, and I'll just do a pitch for Adam and Dave, they run the index purely on money that comes in dollars. So they pay the server bills, everything on the cash donations, the on-chain fiat funds. Well, I shouldn't say on-chain fiat funds, PayPal donations, checks that go in. So I personally have a reoccurring monthly donation that goes in underneath my company name, which is New Media Productions. And then Blueberry does a monthly donation. The folks at rss.com usually do a monthly donation. Same thing with the folks at Buzzsprout. So those cash donations that come in, along with people that are doing monthly, is what is running the index, and they don't take any money out. That all goes in a bank account. And here's the more surprising thing. They have the expenses of the servers that they're able to write off. But at the end of the year, Dave and Adam, believe it or not, are taking a big hit for the podcasting industry. They pay taxes on that money.
Mm-hmm.
And they again, they take it out of hide. It's if they've made let's just say $20,000 in donations for 1 year, and they only had $11,000 in expenses or whatever their expense. I think their expenses are now running about $700 or $800 a month to run the whole index, which it's true server cost. Then whatever profit remains, in whatever tax bracket they're in from their regular JOBs. Of course, Dave has a regular job. Adam does the his podcast and the No Agenda show. So whatever bracket they're in, they have to write a check at the end of the year. So they're working, not getting paid, and paying taxes. I don't think most people know that. So whatever the profit was for Podcast Index, Adam and Dave split that and both wrote tax checks to Uncle Sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So in honesty, they didn't set up a nonprofit or any of that stuff. So they really, I think at this time, besides maybe being an LLC, and again, don't quote me on how their financial structure is, they're taking it out of hide. They're paying, and imagine you going to your spouse and saying, okay, honey, I need to add an extra $2,000 to the tax bill for this thing I'm working on every week, that we have very few tax deductions on.
Yeah.
So, and I hope they're able to take tax deductions on wherever they can. So
I would
don't know what-
imagine they're able to take the expenses of the
regular
organization
expenses,
as a tax
sure.
deduction. Sure.
But if they're not doing travel, or if they're not, there's a whole bunch of things that you can write off. Meals, if you're doing it, if you have a meeting, official meeting involves a meal, or
Right.
those are true tax deductions underneath tax law. But I imagine that because they're being very conservative and trying to make sure this thing has enough legs in it to I think they're up to about 3 years. 2 to 3 years of being able to run if no one gave another dime today. So Marco was doing a $500 donation for a long time as well, and he hadn't even adopted any 2.0 tags yet. So that tells you the type of support that people have for this, and
It'll be interesting to see if Marco, if this puts Marco in a better position to be able to adapt and move to that. We'll see. Right.
Yeah, we'll see. So, a lot of this work is in expanding the ecosystem and taking control back, is being done for pure love of podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people involved in making this expand. You look at Podfans and Sam Sethi, and he's got a business he's trying to build. And I think recently some posts I've seen, I think he's got concerns of can he make this a go of it, and will it pay the bills?
Yeah.
He's in startup mode. So there's a lot of people. Now, we're not saying that as a listener, as a podcaster, that you need to, make sure our businesses survive. No. But I think if you look at all the apps involved, this is why we're asking people to use new podcasting apps. These folks have skin in the game that are going to potentially, and probably leads into the next topic that you and I want to talk about, Rob, is where do we go as a podcasting community? Where do we go from here? What's going to happen over the next couple of years? Are we going to crawl in a hole and allow the narrative that is being promulgated throughout the industry? Are podcasters going to be on Spotify and YouTube and that's it? And have these gatekeepers? And every listener of this show can be an evangelist and helping educate podcasters the importance of open RSS. If we don't evangelize as a community, this precious thing we have could go to the folks that are not giving podcasters a damn penny.
Well, I agree with you, Todd. I do think that there is a danger that this tension that's been building over the last few years between open and closed is a real thing. It's definitely been growing and building. I think we all know who the players are on all these sides, but there's definitely an interest, a commercial interest for closed.
Closed.
Right. The commercial interest for open is not as strong. So it shouldn't
if
be,
people,
but that's what it
if
is.
podcasters really understood the ramifications at stake,
Right.
they would not tell their listeners to listen on Spotify. They would not. But Spotify is a popular platform used by a lot of people. But you basically by promoting Spotify and YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
you've sold your audience to those marketeers.
Right.
They're being remarketed to across Google, across Spotify, and you get zero of that. You get zero. You look at artists, they've just invoked some new clause at Spotify. They've raised the rates for the service, and they're paying music artists less.
Yeah.
So, I laughed a few years ago. There was somebody that was, I think we even had him on the show, that was convinced that Spotify was going to be the savior and was going to be paying podcasters.
Well, the only way that's going to happen is if all the podcasters band together and
It never happened.
right.
But we as podcasters, because that's who's listening to the show, we need to look at what's happening with they're talking about revenue already going down on podcasters that are advertising over there because of this new rule and the heavier ad counts and stuff like that. So when Todd gets on a bandwagon of talking about open RSS, it's pretty special what we have. We can't forget it.
Right.
Let's go into our list of where we think the future is.
Yeah. I was hoping that we could kind of run through some pretty high level concepts that we can all think about as we think about, kind of the key tenets of change or improvement or, some level of kind of adaptation that could be happening in the podcasting space over the next, up to 10 years is the thinking here. And I think we are, like I mentioned earlier, I think we are seeing some of these evolutionary trends already start to show themselves. And so some of this discussion, and this has always been the case on this show, where we talk about more of an evolution than a revolution that this medium has going through for the last 20 years. And Todd and I are both coming up on 20 years in this podcast medium here this
short
summer.
months.
Right. I'm in September, and Todd's also, what was it, in September as
October
well?
9th. Yeah.
October
I'm
9th, right?
October 9th. Yep.
Yeah. So, these changes have been kind of growing, but some of them are new, like the technological advancements around AI, and things like that that we're seeing having increasing impacts on the podcasting space. I believe are going to keep accelerating. I don't know that there's going to be a big pullback on AI
Oh, no,
utilization in podcasting. I think it's only going to accelerate, and
it's
I think
gonna accelerate.
where we're going to see it is get into more aspects, whether it's I think we're already seeing the very beginning of it with transcripts and cloned voices, and being able to create derivative content, from the podcasts that we have now that are human created. What we're seeing is this growing utilization of cloning of voices, and being able to create content that way as well. And then the use of AI for analytics, which I don't know that we've seen a lot of that quite yet, but I do think that that's probably coming. I don't know what you think about analytics, Todd, around using AI to analyze data.
You know, I've got a list
Yeah,
and
I bet you
and
do.
a roadmap doc, but it's doing AI with stats. Some of the stuff in stats is just pure math.
It is.
It's not.
It
It's
just counts, right?
it's just, yeah, and presenting data different ways. But when you get into trying to analyze, everyone you would wish that your show numbers were pretty steady. That from one show would have 1,010 listens, the next show would have 1,050, and the next show would have 1,200. Well, that's not that simple. It bounces like an accordion.
Mhm.
So, trying to come up with scenarios to be able to pull certain data together and do analysis on it is not, well, if I know what the questions I want answered,
Right.
um, it's easier to do AI stuff. And it's like the podcast awards that are going on right now. Last year, I normally pay about $5,000 to have the podcast awards basically audited, and I asked 7 questions those from that audit. And I was able to use ChatGPT last year and get those 7 questions and more answered from the database table from the Podcast Awards voting. Um, and I was able to back that up by going in, doing the math, because again, it's just math problems, and validate that I didn't need to pay this data analysis company anymore $5,000 um, to do analysis. So I think, as we know what questions podcasters want answered from their stats, we can then start using AI to see if we can extract that information in a quick and easy way. One thing that we're working on is we're going to release next Monday our AI highlight clip creator. It's basically kind of a poor man's headliner, and it's still not perfect, but it's about an 80% solution. I'm pretty happy where it's at compared to where it was 3 months ago. We didn't release it because it just, the results weren't as good as I wanted to be. But now we're at a point now, and we're going to put disclaimers on that tool that, okay, we're kind of at an 80% solution here, but what it's going to end up being is, and what our goal at Blueberry was for any of this stuff we're building, I want podcasters to be able to quit paying for third-party services. Now,
Mhm.
that's going to piss a bunch of people off, but I don't want you to have to pay for an AI service. I don't want you to have to pay for X, Y, and Z that you're paying now. You pay your Blueberry hosting bill, maybe a few add-on costs based upon whatever we're going to add, and we want you to save you money. So, my end goal is to make it cheaper for podcasters to do the things they're doing today in podcasting. You look at the new app that was just released by Adobe, the Adobe Podcast. Beautiful tool if you're paying for Adobe.
Right.
Same
Well,
thing with Descript. Beautiful tool if you're paying for Descript.
right.
So this
The
AI stuff is going to just flourish.
Yeah, the AI enhancement of analytics really kind of requires deeper data, right? And that is really where the rubber hits the road on this topic. It needs a deep kind of spectrum of data, right? Which isn't always available to straight RSS based data capture.
Well, there's a huge amount of data there.
Yeah, but there's, if you look at kind of contrast that with, let's say, the amount of data that Apple gets or Spotify gets,
Yeah, but they're not going to share that with you.
well, I realize that, but they're going to be able to tap into probably doing
Oh,
more
yeah.
AI analytics
Yeah.
based on listener behavior, engagement, preferences, a lot of the same things that we're seeing happen on like a YouTube platform, where they can get really deep into this. And it is possible to use AI to optimize titles and descriptions and artwork and things like that using AI to optimize that kind of stuff.
Well, I
So
think you can do that with a normal podcast today. It has,
well, you
but
can. I mean, some
you
of
don't
those
see
things, right?
podcasters going back and changing titles on shows very often.
Yeah, I think it's a common thing on the YouTube side of things for people to change artwork and especially the episode artwork and then also titles and descriptions to be able to go in and try different scenarios, right? Not just stick with one, but I guess, it's just a different publishing kind of environment.
Yeah.
But AI is going to be able to offer suggestions on those areas increasingly and
Yep.
and rank those options for those publishers.
So I think over time, again, we have to determine what questions we want answered. And once we get on the analytics side,
Mhm.
what is a question we can answer through just not doing a math problem?
Right. Right.
We're talking about a new feature that we're going to be introducing in a couple of weeks at Blueberry within our stat system.
Right.
And the question always comes back to me from the devs is, okay, this is cool, but you know how much this is going to cost us in compute power, right?
Right. Right. That's always the question. Yeah.
Because now we're going to have to do these extra calculations to provide this data. So for me, that ends up being it's real money,
Right.
in real server resources. So every little new feature, every new little thing that we add, that's another query the database has to use and another query that can go sideways too. If something, if we don't catch something. So,
Yeah.
and I don't think a lot of people think, and this is not AI compute. This is just pure, my Amazon bill,
Right. Well,
And how
Todd,
many
we're
times
at the number 2 on my list
Oh.
so far, just to let you know. And this particular one we talked about in, I believe it was last week's episode about ease of content creation. These are trends as we look to the future that's hopefully driving podcaster growth. Because one of the big questions is as we look to the next couple of years, are we going to see a growth and expansion of new content creators in podcasting? Now, granted, the definition of what a podcast is has been in flux to some degree in what people think out there, but access and ease of content creation is the big factor here, of enabling people to create shows and to create content online. The tools and the equipment and the software platforms are getting better and better and easier to use. Everybody's striving for that increasingly, and then the growing popularity of multi-format content too is another thing. Whether or not we like that or not, that is happening in the content creation landscape right now, where people are creating audio, video, and live content. The argument is, what's growing, what isn't growing, what's the optimized kind of formula? Is it audio only? Is it video and audio, or is it live plus video and audio? Which is, if you're doing live, you're probably doing audio and video. But that's the crucial question right now, is the growing expansion of what people are seeing as multi-format content, whether it's short, long form. There's all sorts of options now about creating content. It's not like the old days where it was just like, mostly audio or just video. Now it's, short form content, long form content, audiobooks, packaging audio and video in all sorts of different ways too. So I think those are significant trend lines too as we look to the future. And this next one, number 4, is growth trends. The increasing number of podcasts. So we're currently at over 4 million podcasts now. A lot of those shows are archive shows, but some
Well,
are
like 90% of them or something.
right, right. And some folks are projecting, whether or not this comes true or not, that we may double the number of shows over the next decade. The question is, are we going to double the amount of active shows? Are we going to double just the amount of total shows? Are we going to go to 8 million because we've gone through so many shows that have converted into being
Yes.
archive shows?
Yes.
You're right. That's going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
Though I think we have seen a pullback to some degree on that total number, that 4.2 million podcasts. I think just like a year ago, it was like 4.5 or 4.6 or something like that. So we
I
have
think
seen
a lot of that was deduplication and the Spotify purge.
right. But I think to be optimistic about the future, are there some trends here that are going to help the expansion of podcasting? I would love to see this medium continue to grow. I think that, like we talked about in last week's episode, I think that there is an upper limit to the listening side of how many people, will adopt this medium. Now, how many content creators get involved in this medium is still a fairly small number if you compare it to other mediums, right?
If you compare it to everything else,
Right?
this is, and what it is, let's just be frank, there's a lot of distractions out there.
Yeah.
And some people pick a platform and that's where they go. They go Instagram, they go TikTok, they go YouTube, they go wherever they may go. And being on one platform and being successful on one platform takes a serious focus, especially if you're an independent content creator. So this is where I go back and talking to podcasters. I'm like, okay, you started podcasting for a reason. And the medium is unique in that if you consume podcasts like majority people do via listening on with your mobile device and earbuds, this is the most intimate medium there is, and it's a lean in medium, and people lose sight of that a little bit, and they get wrapped around the hype. Even in our newsletter, which I think went out this afternoon, I just said, okay, if you've been thinking about video, and it's stuff we've been talking about on the show, is, please understand what you're getting into, and
Right.
and do your research, and don't fall for don't be that big 18-inch bass that's seeing that shiny lure that is going through the water and say, oh, what's over there, Mom? And go grab the lure and then end up on someone's dinner plate.
Right.
Because this medium still is super viable. And some people are going to say, oh, you got to, you can do shorts. You can repurpose content. You've been able to repurpose content in podcasting since the beginning.
Right.
You've been able to do shorts in podcasting since the beginning. It's nothing new here. People have been technically been doing shorts in podcasting probably longer than shorts been on YouTube. So, that's because how did we promote our podcast? By a snippet, a little audio snippet. So I think that there's a method to the madness. And if you're going to do video, then just be prepared. I think to be honest, what's going to happen, and I don't want to make a prediction that is going to make people freak out. I think we'll have a much higher failure rate of shows that do video, because it is not as easy as everyone thinks.
What
much harder to do.
constitutes failure in your
Most
definition?
people's failure is growth.
Mhm.
Most people quit because they're not gaining what they consider a significant audience.
Mhm.
But I go back to the idea that if you have 1,000 people listening to your show, do a Google search for an image that looks like 1,000 people, and print that out and put that in front of your computer.
Mhm.
1,000 people is a lot of people. 100 people is a lot of people. 5,000 people is an incredible number of people. You get into the upper atmosphere of 50,000 plus, that's a stadium
Mhm.
of people that you're reaching. Again, it's just like anything else. A lot of people have challenges building a show in podcasting. I think they're going to have the same challenges on YouTube. So just because you're adding video does not mean your show is going to succeed. You have to have sustained superior content.
Right. Number 5 on my list is global expansion, and I do
Oh yeah, that's
wonder if a lot of this growth that is being forecasted is really linked up to global expansion
I'm sure.
of podcasting, more so than expansion of podcasting in North America. So as you look at even localization as a derivative topic of global expansion, is that really gets around local languages, local culture, AI-based localization efforts of the content. Now, even YouTube has announced some support of taking English and translating into all the languages of the world and making all the content that's in English available in local languages all around the world. So you can kind of see an indication of that. But it's not so much a podcast kind of solution here, but I do think that there's going to be opportunities for podcasters to actually take advantage of that ability as well. I think as you look to the next couple of years with AI translation and things, and then just overall market growth in the emerging markets around the world. Hopefully, we'll see expansion and growth, but I think North America has kind of reached us and is rapidly reaching a saturation point. Just like with
Oh,
cell phones have reached a
here's
saturation point. So, are we really adding a lot of new users when we're over 70% right now, 80%? What is the upside to new users? It's
new
gonna start
listeners
slowing. Yeah.
or new
Oh,
podcasters.
no, new consumers of podcasts.
Well, Rob, come on now.
There is an upper limit
Y-
there.
There, I don't think so, because here's the thing.
What
You have
I mean, it's a
you
declining population. So,
but you have new people that are being born every day
I
that
know,
are
but it's a
going to be
declining number.
yeah, but still, I think overall, over time, the number will continue to increase just because of
Yeah, but it's gonna be slower probably is
well,
my
you're never going to probably ever hit 100%,
right,
but
that's my point, is that
again,
there is an upper
not
limit.
everyone watches YouTube. Not everyone has a TikTok account. So again, what is that set? Matter of fact, the United States, you may not have a TikTok account at the end of the year. So again, I think from a creation standpoint, creators are being born every second.
Yeah, I'm not talking about creators, I'm talking about consumers of this content.
I think
Yeah,
it'll still continue to grow. It may not
well,
be. It's had a slow growth the entire time. It's never
yeah,
been an upward trajectory.
no, it's been between what, 2 and
2 or
5.
3%, or maybe 4.
Eh, I think
Some
we've gotten
years.
up to 5%, a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, it's been slow, and then I think also outside of the United States, outside of North America, the access to data and smartphone data plans has been expensive and
For
hard to
some
get.
countries, yeah.
Yep. So if those other parts of the world can open up on access to data and data speed and cost
Well,
scenarios for data, I think that'll help grow podcasting as well.
during my week when I went over to Thailand, I bought an eSIM. The data over there was incredible. I mean,
Is it fast?
oh, it's really fast. Yeah, it's like 300 megs up, down. It
Could
was
you
insane.
get a lot of data though? I mean, like in
Oh,
a
yeah.
data plan or
Yeah,
something?
I got like 100 gigs for 7 days or something. It was crazy.
Mm,
So, in some countries, in Europe, I think as well, their mobile data plans makes American data plans look like trash. And then again, there's other parts of the world that's not,
right.
developed nations. There's still issues.
Yeah, like in
But
Africa, I think it's
yeah,
definitely a challenge. Yeah.
just because it's a big continent, and um, you know, maybe Elon's going to solve it with Starlink. I don't know, but it's a huge, huge um, deployment challenge.
Yeah, I think he did get a patent, I think, for some technology that would enable kind of more small
Well,
device
well,
usage.
he's launching satellites now that are cell capable. So
Mhm.
that'll be, I think all of them are trying to do that. So, but does that fix worldwide data problems? No, not at all.
Yeah.
That because the carrier has to be engaged. You still have to have a data plan with a carrier and blah blah blah.
Yeah. We'll see how that develops. And also number 6 is the influence of AI, AGI, which we haven't even evolved into that phase yet of artificial general intelligence, which is really high level intelligence of the AI beyond where we are today. Chat GPT is not AGI.
No,
It's
no.
not reached that level at all. I think we have quite a ways to go to get to AGI. Now, granted, they may be
Well,
working on projects that are not publicly released yet that may be approaching AGI, but those aren't
they
public projects. Uh,
they're saying 2 to 5 years, so
yeah,
it's not that
yeah.
far away.
No, it's not. And then
We'll
the next part of this is AI agents, which are being able to each one of us having our own artificial intelligent agent that will kind of manage our
I don't know
lives.
how I don't know how that's gonna affect podcasting per se, but
Well, it could
I
help a podcaster
yeah, it could.
manage their show, manage how it's produced, how it's put together, how the data is gathered that could be used in the program. I guess at the end of
Well,
the day, is it
there's already stuff out
voiced by
there that
the AI or is it voiced by the human? Is the question, right?
there's already platforms out there that are designed to help you with your social promotion. And those platforms are going to adopt stuff where you probably won't even have to write your copy anymore. It's gonna suggest copy, you approve it, and it'll go. That's
Mhm.
just gonna make it. But the problem with that is also gonna be with any of this AI generated stuff is we're just gonna have the noise floor is gonna go up so much more. There's gonna be so much more content, whether it be promotional.
Yeah.
It's just it's gonna go off the charts. I think where do we as consumers of that drivel of data, where do we say I've had enough and regress back to basics? Because I think there's just this onslaught of content coming that people are not going to know who generated it and if it can be trustworthy.
And it does raise this question, is there gonna be a hierarchy of the value of content? It is the content that's produced by humans going to be perceived as higher value than content that's generated based on AI technology
Well, I would hope human, well, it all
would be
depends.
valued more. But I think it depends, once you get up to artificial general intelligence and beyond, you know,
Oh,
the
that the whole world changes then.
the quality of the information that's made available through AGI may be far beyond any human's ability to.
But the danger is a shit in, shit out feedback loop. So,
Yeah.
because the challenge is if you've got all this content that's being indexed now and make up these models, and it's
Right.
all of a sudden producing a whole bunch of content, and then the model goes back and regurgitates that for the next model, it could absolutely unravel itself. So we have to be careful
Yeah.
that we don't have to be mindless bots out here.
Right.
It
Exactly.
it goes back to my favorite saying, use of AI is not a substitute for common sense.
Right. Well, and then personalized listening experiences, automated editing and production. Now, granted, I think we're kind of moving into
Yeah,
that era right now
yeah, it is.
of the now automated editing and production is. I'm not sure that automation is definitely in play yet on that, but I think
Well,
that
some of the automated stuff is pretty bad right now.
well, automated or more just AI-based editing. I don't know that it's automated per se. I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of what automation is. Mine would be is that it basically gets utilized as part of like a publishing process, and humans don't oversee it at all.
Oh,
So
God forbid.
yeah, well, that's probably where it's going ultimately, and then AI-driven audience engagement. Now, this could possibly be, engagement with audience and
Yeah.
comments, making, those kind of live experiences could be done with AI bots, that could
Okay.
represent the thoughts of the host. I don't know. I mean, how far
Again,
is
I
this
think,
gonna go, right?
yeah, hopefully not that far. But someone will experiment with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and content curation and discovery, the listening platforms are gonna utilize this
You know
to
who's going to experiment with it first, right, Rob? The porn industry will be first to adopt most of this stuff. It's
well, it
true.
always is the first, right? Yeah,
Yeah, they're the early adopters, and so
yeah,
and also the marketeers, the internet marketeers, and selling you a $99 course that's going to change your life.
right,
So they will take advantage of all. They already are. They're already already producing huge amounts of trash.
right, and what are the ethical considerations here of utilizing AI and AGI in podcasting? I don't know that the industry has a good handle on what its standards and what,
I think content's going to need to. I think there's and I've said this on a prior show. I think we're going to have to start marking content. If you've used AI to replace words, or an editing, maybe not even AI, if you've used an editing package to replace words that you did not speak, I think that needs to be flagged.
Mhm.
Um, and I got a lot of pushback on that. So, oh well, I shouldn't have to flag that. Well, if you said X and then you change it to Z, um,
Yeah.
should you have not said this has been edited with an artificial voice? I think you should.
Yeah, but if you actually typed it into a transcript, then you are creating that content, right?
I think you still have to
Yeah.
disclose that.
Well, that's the big question is if the host actually typed that new word into, let's say, a transcript and that added that word in audio to the actual audio experience, is that still a word that I came up with? I didn't voice it, but I came up with it. See,
I
so
think
we
you
have
have to disclose
yeah,
it. Maybe. I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know that anybody's wrong on this. More to do with what is the listener going to accept, and is there going to be a certain amount of acceptable kind of deception that's going to happen in
Yeah.
this area?
Well,
Um,
it's just someone can take, 10 hours of us speaking and they could recreate the show today on some of the
right,
platforms.
right. And I do also think that AI could be used to really create an improved discovery experience, better search, better recommendations like that in the
Oh,
platforms. I think,
it's already happening.
yeah, podcasting has been pretty bad when it comes
Well,
to
you
search.
look at our
Yeah.
show notes. Our show notes are remarkably better than they were.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, but again, I think there has to be some disclosure here. When stuff is being edited, and if you're replacing stuff that you did not originally speak, and you use some artificial voice to add a word, and I think you have to disclose that.
Yeah. I think, we're, and it gets back to what I just said. I think that if you came up, so let's say you used AI to come up with your script for your show, and you basically inputted that AI generated script into
That's
a
complete.
cloning,
I know people are already doing that,
right, and put that into
and
a
not
cloning
disclosing.
process, right,
Yeah,
that will use my voice to voice
yeah.
that. I didn't come up with those words. Those were
No,
generated by AI. I think
I
that
know.
could be seen as a deception.
I know of 3 shows already that's doing exactly that
Really.
already. Yeah.
So they're actually prompting OpenAI or
Well,
one of these platforms.
they are using AI to write a script. They go
Mhm,
in and edit the script, and then they apply it to whatever there's a service that does voice cloning, and
mhm.
it records a podcast for them. I
Yeah,
know I listened to it.
like 11 Labs or what one of those type of
Right, 11,
platforms?
they're using
Right.
11 Labs, yeah, and they're not disclosing.
Yeah, and
They're
a
not
lot of
dis
those voice clones, they sound pretty good.
And the question really is technically, you cannot have copyright on AI generated, um if you tell it, "Okay, let's create a story on, the history of blah, blah, blah,"
Mhm.
and the AI comes up with a script, um, and that technically cannot be copyrighted. How much you have to change of that script to be able to call it your own, the jury's still out on that. But
Yeah,
technically,
yeah.
and I think you have to change a lot of it, um, in order to obtain copyright. That's why, for me, if I'm doing any type of show prep or anything like that, I come up with talking points. I
Mhm.
don't come up with any script that I would ever read. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's kinda like an outline of sorts,
yeah,
right? It's a topic
yeah,
outline that you use
yeah.
as a reference to keep you on track on
But
something,
again,
but they're your words, right?
I know people created, they have an AI podcast that does AI news, and basically they use AI to scan like, 10 news stories, and then puts that out in the author's voice as if he had recorded it.
Right.
So automated. They don't even, I just push a button, and the whole process is done through scripting, and the episode goes out, and the podcaster's sleeping.
Yeah.
Has had no So this is where we have to be careful of junk, and we have to be careful of disclosure. I think a show like that has to have full disclosure. If it's being completely automated, and maybe I'll give a little ground if you've just edited in the script and changed a few words, maybe we don't need to market that. But if you are
Mhm.
creating wholehearted content with I think that has to be, well, YouTube requires it. It has to be 100% disclosed.
Well, I believe even a YouTube platform has a, flag and a requirement
Yeah.
that you have to identify
Yeah.
certain content that's
We
created
don't
by
have that
AI,
in podcasting yet.
right? So and then, as we look to the future, Todd, about utilizing social platforms, social media platforms as a primary kind of promotion platform, it's not so much a question about AI, even though AI could be used to
Oh,
generate
it's
posts
already being
into
used.
social, right?
We're already
Um,
creating clips with AI. We're already creating highlight reels with AI. That's the Blueberry's doing right now.
I just wonder what the future of like Facebook and the social platforms are. I just get the feeling like people are kind of pulling back from those things. Um,
Well,
increasingly, I
every
just wonder if the trust will come back again somehow.
the problem with Facebook, and has been for a long time, is it feeds you what it knows is going to drive your dopamine hit.
Hmm.
It's not feeding. If I want to go look for you and what you've said recently, I have to look up your profile. I have to look up my mom's profile. I have to look up my aunts and uncles and kids. I don't see anything my kids post. I have to go find it. I have to go look at their profile. So
Right.
Facebook has completely abandoned its original tenant. So now it's just, you know, but yet here we're streaming live on Facebook today.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of people over there, but I do know a lot of people have been pulling back from it. I know I don't use it as much as I used to many years ago.
I'm
And
definitely not in the podcasting groups like I used to be, because no one is willing to do any homework on their own. No one is willing to, every little stupid question is being asked. People want to be hand-fed stuff now. So it's great for the trolls that are there promoting their services.
mhm,
And which podcast host should I use? Well, you look at the same people promoting again and again and again. Well, there's their paid promoters, making sure that they're promoting the service. I don't even hardly participate anymore in those those commentaries, because it's just a pile-on of the same thing again and again and again and again and again and
yeah,
again and again.
it becomes a little
And
redundant. And
people don't take time to do their own research.
yeah. And then the other big trend line that we're seeing too is increasing importance of listener engagement. So when I say that, I'm talking more about community building, right? Discord, Reddit, these community tools that are out there that people are trying to aggregate and consolidate their audiences around to create deeper connections and deeper relationships, and ultimately even premium type of communities, as well as another layer to this too, as more paid participation platforms. And it does seem like that there is a interest in podcasters and creators out there that are wanting to shift away from the advertising model and move towards more direct funding type of models with their communities, that they can drive
Yeah.
maybe content to that community, that they don't have to be as concerned about community guidelines and uh, being demonetized if they talk about certain topics on those
Well,
on those public platforms, where if
it,
they
it
create content on a private community group, they can typically share what they want.
um we're already way past time today, Rob.
I
So maybe
know.
we're gonna have to save some of this list. But going
Yeah,
back to something that just triggered me, did you see the testimony that Ben Shapiro made in Congress over the um, brand safety stuff?
I did.
Um,
I've been
if
keeping a close eye on the brand safety topic for
if
and
if
and brand
if
suitability.
you guys may not like Ben Shapiro's politics, but I would recommend every podcaster listen to his testimony and understand how screwed GARM is, um, and really how, in my opinion, how evil that system is. Again, you have individual gatekeepers that are making determinations of what is safe and what isn't safe, and the biases, just because people are human, that has been built into GARM. I think I think every podcaster needs to at least listen to Ben's testimony and dissect it. Think about it. Think about what he has said. And of
Yeah,
course, he has a conservative view, but
it's
some
much
pretty,
bigger than one
oh
type
yeah,
of
but
side view. It
s-
it's going to impact everyone. It's
So
not just a political
it was
orientation.
it was a pretty powerful dialogue,
Hmm.
and it just convinced me that we will never adopt GARM at Blueberry. No, there's no way. I won't do it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I wrote
it's
an
just
article off my robgreenlee.com blog. This is probably almost 6 months ago now on this very topic, and I go into great detail and link to GARM and link to other external resources that you can go and read yourself, to actually see what's involved in all this. And it's been something that I've had an interest in for a while now, and it's an unfortunate development in the podcasting space. I mean, it's been happening in, YouTube and Facebook and other platforms for a few years now.
and it
So
it
yeah.
really, and be honest with you, this is where these closed systems
Mhm.
are picking winners and losers,
Yeah,
and where
there's certain
and
topics that, if they identify your podcast that has said certain keywords or keyword phrases in your content, they will basically exclude you from any advertising campaigns.
it doesn't not just advertising, Rob, being surfaced, the
Well
content being buried.
well,
It's not just about monetization.
that's a whole nother level, right? Yeah.
Well, it is the main part of it right now, because they're doing this on platforms that are advertiser supported. They don't
Mhm.
want to present this type of content for those that are not paying. They have to keep the ad dollars rolling in, so they
Mhm.
bury this content.
And
So
they highlight the content that adheres to the content guidelines that are specified for it. Actually, if you wanted to see a testimonial on this from a very big podcaster, actually just do a search in YouTube for Conan O'Brien and brand safety. Those
right,
keywords, and you'll come up with an episode that Conan O'Brien did, um, in video. It's like maybe a 20-30 minute conversation where they actually talk in great detail about brand safety and suitability. And it's an interesting conversation coming from a very controversial comedian about his concerns about how that brand safety platform is impacting his comedy.
now it's you have gatekeepers that are picking winners or losers from an
Mhm.
algorithm that is has human biases in it.
Mhm.
And some individual in an office is deciding which content you as a consumer should be
Has
allowed to
access to.
see.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So open RSS, there are no such restrictions.
Well, we
So
hope
there
that
again,
stays that way, right?
right. So the question is Spotify using GARM and bearing content on Spotify?
We don't know. Is Apple doing it too?
We know YouTube is.
We don't know if Apple's doing it either.
But it
After
doesn't matter if Apple does, because you don't go looking on Apple. People don't discover shows by searching on Apple.
Yeah. Well, that that situation probably needs to be improved. I think they need to be better at searching, right?
Well, like, you can find any show on Apple. You're just not gonna find specific episodic data.
Right, because they're as far as
You
we
know
know, they're
right,
not indexing that stuff.
yeah.
So,
Well, they're indexing and they're just not searchable, I'm sure.
well, Todd, you're right. We didn't make it through my whole list of
Yeah.
the top trends that are moving through podcasts. I think we made it up almost through 8.
I think
So,
that's your list. Some of these I'd be like, "Are these really trends?" I don't know, but we can come back to it in the next show.
okay, yeah. Well, next show is going to be mostly Dan Franks from
We'll see
Podcast
if
Movement.
Dan sticks with us for 90 minutes. I doubt he's here the full 90 minutes.
Okay. All
We'll
right.
see.
Well, I think we talked about a lot of the important topics around how the industry is evolving the direction that it's moving in many topics here. There's certainly more to explore. There's no question. Yeah.
That is for sure. So I hope everyone enjoyed this marathon show today.
Yeah. It's not unusual for us to go 40.
Yeah,
1 hour 40.
yeah, not. It's being more the norm recently. So I'm gonna go crawl back into bed here in a minute. So
All right. All
yeah,
right.
everyone, you can reach me, geeknews@gmail.com, at geeknews on X. I'm at geeknews, at geeknews.chat on Mastodon. And of course, Geek News Central. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the show, please do so. Follow or subscribe. I guess that's the proper way to say it now.
Right. There's blueberry.com if you want to check that out.
Yeah, definitely do so.
And my website is here as well, and my YouTube channel. And if you want to go to newmediashow.com, you can catch all of our archive episodes as well. And if you wanted to reach out to me, I'm on email, rob.greenlee@gmail.com, and I'm on X as well at robgreenlee. And so, Todd, it's great.
I
So
think
we'll be
it's
back next week.
Yep, same time. And then following that, back in August, we'll be back to our afternoon shows again. So I'll be
Sounds
back
great.
in a time where it's not 2 o'clock in the morning here when I'm trying to do a show with you.
Right.
So,
Sounds good. All right.
all right, buddy.
Good
Thanks so
night.
much. We'll see you
Yep.
next time. Bye.